My daughter came home one evening with tears streaming down her face. She had just returned from a Christmas gathering at her grandparents' house, where she had been invited earlier that week. It was clear that something had deeply upset her. Without saying a word, she handed me a small, neatly wrapped gift. "Mom, look at this," she said softly, her voice trembling. "Why do I have to go through this?" I could see the pain in her eyes, and my heart ached for her. I gently unwrapped the package, trying to understand what could have caused her so much distress. To my shock, the gift inside was entirely inappropriate for a child. Alarmed and deeply concerned, I immediately decided to report the incident to the police. This single action led to a chain of events that exposed the person responsible and brought serious consequences to them. As a result, the entire family was thrown into turmoil. The situation caused significant drama and strained relationships, but ultimately, justice was served. At 43 years old, I was already balancing a unique life. I had a younger husband who worked at the same company as me. In fact, we had met when I was 32 and had just started a new career. My previous job ended badly after a harsh comment from my old boss, who implied I wasn't good enough because of my age. Thankfully, my current workplace valued skills and dedication over things like age or gender. My husband, who was my supervisor at the time, stood by me and encouraged me to believe in myself. We quickly fell in love and got married soon after. Now, we have a beautiful daughter in the 4th grade. She is a gentle, kind-hearted soul who loves reading and always tries to befriend everyone. However, despite my good relationship with most of my in-laws, things were never easy with my husband's sister. She openly disapproved of me being older than her brother and often mocked how quickly we got married. Her comments about my age and the physical changes I went through during pregnancy were especially cruel. Although her words hurt, I tried my best to stay calm and not let them affect me, knowing it was better for my peace of mind. Surprisingly, her attitude began to change when she herself had a quick wedding and moved far away. With her gone, I could finally enjoy the peaceful joy of preparing to welcome my daughter into the world. The birth of our daughter wasn't easy. It was a challenging and exhausting experience, but it was also one of the happiest moments of our lives. My husband's constant support and loving words gave me strength through every difficulty. I will never forget the moment our daughter let out her first cry in the delivery room. My husband held my hand, tears in his eyes, and whispered how proud and grateful he was. It was a moment of pure happiness. However, just 5 months after our daughter was born, my sister-in-law also had a baby, a boy. Soon, she started visiting us again, even though it took her an hour to get to our home. It quickly became clear that her visits had a purpose: to criticize and make comparisons. She would constantly make remarks about my age, claiming it was somehow visible on our daughter's face in the form of imaginary wrinkles, which she compared to her son's smooth skin. Her words stung, but I tried to focus on my baby and the joys of motherhood. What puzzled me most was her behavior during these visits. She never brought anything for the babies, no diapers, no toys, nothing. Instead, she would leave with supplies from our home, like formula and diapers, saying she didn't want to run out. It felt as though her visits were less about bonding and more about putting me down while helping herself to our things. Thankfully, these visits stopped when her husband got a new job and they moved to another state. For a while, life became much calmer. Our daughter soon started elementary school and quickly made new friends. To my surprise, her cousin, the same boy my sister-in-law often compared her to, was enrolled at the same school. Despite the tension between the adults in the family, the two children formed a close and warm friendship. My daughter, being kind and nurturing, often looked out for her younger cousin. By 3rd grade, they were in the same class, and my daughter's teachers often praised her for her kindness and hard work. That summer, my daughter completed a reading project that earned her recognition from the school. Her reflection on the book was so well written that it was published in the local newspaper. This achievement brought her a lot of praise, and during a family visit to my in-laws' home, her accomplishment became a topic of conversation. Relatives gathered to congratulate her, and I could see how proud everyone was. However, my sister-in-law didn't seem happy. In fact, she looked quite upset. She complained that it wasn't fair her son wasn't receiving the same attention, even going so far as to claim the book my daughter had read was meant for her son. The truth was, the kids had exchanged books over the summer and decided together which one to use for their project. My daughter's success wasn't about competition, it was about her love for learning and hard work. Still, my sister-in-law's comments revealed her discomfort with the attention shifting away from her and her family. Despite these challenges, I've learned to focus on the positive moments. Watching my daughter grow into a bright, caring, and resilient young girl has been the greatest joy of my life. Through every difficulty, my husband's support and love have been my anchor. Family relationships may be complicated, but at the heart of it all, our daughter continues to teach us about kindness, strength, and the value of facing life with an open heart. This incident highlighted the stark contrast between the children's kindness and the adults' conflicts. My nephew had shown a clear preference for the book my daughter had chosen for her reading project, and my daughter, being gracious, let him have it first. This small but thoughtful gesture demonstrated their ability to share and support one another, despite the tension among the adults. When I shared the story, my sister-in-law falsely accused me of writing the award-winning reflection for my daughter. She seemed to remember that I used to write novels during my college years, a fact she must have learned from my husband. But that wasn't the worst of it. Behind my back, she started spreading malicious rumors at my daughter's school, claiming that I had used personal connections with the competition judges to give my daughter an unfair advantage. These unfounded accusations deeply hurt my daughter. She was so disheartened by the gossip and false claims that she lost all interest in her favorite hobby, reading. Seeing her withdraw from something she once loved was the breaking point for me. Not only was my daughter the victim of cruel rumors, but I was also being unfairly targeted. Before taking action, I sat down with my husband and shared everything, how his sister had mistreated me from the start. I revealed how she had taken clothes meant for our daughter, saying that babies didn't care about gender-specific outfits, and how she had made cruel comments about my appearance during pregnancy, comparing me to a sumo wrestler. My husband was furious. He agreed it was time to involve his parents, and insisted on addressing the issue directly. Together, we went to his sister's house to confront her. She seemed delighted at first, thinking the visit was a friendly one. But her excitement quickly turned to shock when my husband sternly reprimanded her. Instead of taking responsibility, she turned her anger on me, accusing me of betraying her by sharing everything with her favorite brother. She painted herself as the victim, trying to shift the blame. At first, I answered her phone calls, thinking she might want to make amends. But it became clear she was only venting her frustrations. Eventually, I decided to send her calls straight to voicemail and stopped engaging with her entirely. The calls stopped after about 2 weeks, and I assumed she had finally moved on. But later, I learned that wasn't the case. In December, my in-laws decided to host a children's Christmas party, their first time doing so. The timing struck me as curious, but my daughter was overjoyed at the invitation. She fondly remembered the fun Christmas celebration she had experienced in kindergarten and was hopeful for something similar. Unfortunately, her elementary school didn't hold holiday events due to their strict policy on religious activities. I often wonder why such strict adherence to religious traditions is necessary, especially since Christmas has become a universally cherished holiday, celebrated in many ways around the world. Reflecting on this, I decided that my daughter and I would embrace the holiday spirit in our own way. For the past 2 years, we had celebrated Christmas quietly at home, with our favorite part being the gift exchange. This year, the invitation to my in-laws' party came with a modest gift exchange budget of $10. My daughter and I set off on a fun shopping trip to a large mall nearby, searching for the perfect gift. After exploring various options, she chose one of her favorite picture books, eager to share its story and joy with someone at the party. On the day of the event, my daughter left for my in-laws' home with the gift in hand. Since it was just a short bus ride from our house, she let my mother-in-law know her plan, and my mother-in-law kindly offered to pick her up at the bus stop. Later, I received a call assuring me that my daughter had arrived safely, which allowed me to relax for a while. But that peace didn't last long. Barely 44 minutes later, I heard the front door open. The sound startled me. It was a weekday, and I knew my husband was still at work. I had been working remotely during my daughter's winter break, so I wasn't expecting anyone. What I saw broke my heart. My daughter stood at the entrance, her face streaked with tears. She didn't say a word, just handed me a neatly wrapped gift bag, her expression telling me that the contents would explain everything. My heart sank as I took the bag from her trembling hands, dreading what I might find inside. When I opened the gift my daughter had brought home, my hands trembled as I pulled out a torn newspaper, her reading reflection, shredded to pieces. Alongside it was a chilling card, written in red ink, warning us not to get too arrogant or risk ending up like the disfigured stuffed animal also in the bag. The toy, mangled and stained with red ink to resemble blood, sent shivers down my spine. This was no harmless prank. It was a deliberate act meant to intimidate. My daughter, still shaken, revealed the shocking truth. The disturbing gift was from my sister-in-law. I was stunned. This Christmas party was supposed to be a cheerful, child-centered gathering, and the adults had all agreed not to personally prepare gifts. Even though I hadn't accompanied my daughter to the event, I never expected such a cruel act. Adding to my disbelief, I later discovered that my mother-in-law hadn't even known her daughter would be attending the party. She had always insisted we report any trouble caused by her daughter, but this time, it seemed my sister-in-law had gone behind everyone's back. This breach of trust left me disheartened. I gently reminded my daughter to tell her grandmother about what had happened, but before she could, my aunt intervened, saying something odd, that only children connected to missionary schools were welcome at certain events. My daughter, confused, asked, "What's a missionary school?" I struggled to explain. Recently, a relative had been accepted into one, sparking much conversation in the family. My sister-in-law's son attended a missionary kindergarten, and it seemed she used this as another opportunity to belittle our decision to send our daughter to a local public school instead. Distraught over the threatening gift, I decided enough was enough. I rushed to the police, determined to report the incident. At first, the officers seemed reluctant, suggesting this was a family matter best resolved privately. But a compassionate female officer understood the seriousness of the situation. She explained that threats and harassment within families were still legal offenses and promised to issue a warning to my sister-in-law. That evening, when my husband came home, I recounted everything. Outraged, he immediately called his parents to inform them of what had happened. They were shocked, especially since they claimed to have no knowledge of my sister-in-law being at the party. They speculated that she might have sneaked in through an unlocked back door, while my mother-in-law was busy with other responsibilities. The next day, after the police officer had issued her warning, my in-laws arranged a family meeting to address the issue. At the gathering, my sister-in-law and her husband arrived late. She walked in looking displeased, clearly unhappy about the police involvement, while her husband seemed completely unaware of why the meeting had been called. When the full extent of her actions was revealed, her husband was visibly shocked. He apologized to us profusely, expressing genuine remorse for his wife's behavior, a sharp contrast to her own defiance. She stubbornly insisted that, since the police hadn't arrested her, she must be innocent. Her lack of accountability left everyone in the room speechless. Then came a shocking twist. Her husband announced that he intended to file for divorce. The revelation stunned us all, as there had been no outward signs of trouble in their marriage. He explained that he had endured years of her behavior, which ranged from neglecting household duties to putting their family in difficult situations due to her carelessness. Her obsession with appearances had led to multiple unnecessary moves, each justified by her vanity rather than actual needs. These relocations were often tied to her ambition of getting their son into prestigious schools, but they always ended in disappointment and embarrassment. In the end, their son chose to attend a public elementary school, a decision supported by his father, despite her initial objections. Her recent harassment of our family was the final straw for him, accelerating his decision to leave the marriage. Caught off guard by her husband's announcement, my sister-in-law tried to backtrack. She offered a weak apology, claiming her actions were just harmless jokes. But no one was convinced. The threatening card, the mutilated toy, and the hateful message went far beyond what could ever be excused as a prank. Her behavior was both alarming and inexcusable, especially given that it targeted a child. I confronted her directly, pointing out the stark difference between her actions and the instincts of a caring parent. Being a parent doesn't automatically give you parental instincts, I told her. It's your actions that show whether you truly care. Her silence spoke volumes. The trust within the family had been irreparably broken, and no one was willing to defend her anymore. As the meeting concluded, it became clear that this chapter had marked a turning point, not just for her, but for everyone involved. While she remained defiant, the rest of us focused on protecting our children and moving forward, determined not to let her bitterness overshadow our lives. Through this ordeal, I learned that standing up for my daughter was not only necessary, but also empowering. No matter how challenging the situation, I would always choose to protect her and show her that kindness, resilience, and courage will always outshine cruelty. I looked my sister-in-law in the eye and pointed out how her behavior was far from what anyone would expect from someone in her position. She had crossed a line, and it wasn't something that could simply be brushed aside. My husband, clearly frustrated, spoke firmly to her. "Crying won't solve anything," he said. "You're old enough to take responsibility for your actions. Don't expect tears to earn you sympathy or absolve you." But she continued sobbing, insisting she had done nothing wrong and questioning why she was being blamed. Her tears soon turned into accusations, claiming that the family's disapproval stemmed from my marriage to her brother. She implied that the real issue was me, an older wife, rather than her own actions. Her complete failure to understand the gravity of her behavior left us stunned. My husband, in particular, seemed deeply hurt by her refusal to accept responsibility. The tension in the room was palpable. No resolution seemed possible, and the discussion came to an abrupt halt. Her husband, visibly embarrassed, quietly escorted her home. Despite her defiance, the divorce proceedings moved forward, though they were filled with resistance on her part. She refused to acknowledge her faults, making the process more difficult than it needed to be. What ultimately tipped the scales was a revelation from her son. In his innocent honesty, he told his classmates about the Christmas party and the unsettling gift exchange, vividly describing the stuffed animal that had been torn apart and stained with red ink to look like blood. His story spread quickly among the school community, sparking concern among teachers and parents. This unintended confession brought a wave of gossip that deeply affected my daughter. She found it difficult to return to school, her spirits dampened by whispers linking her to the incident. The connection between her absence and the events of the Christmas party became a topic of speculation, highlighting how one thoughtless act could ripple out and hurt so many people. I had hoped the matter could be resolved quietly, giving my daughter time to heal and return to school when she felt ready. Her cousin's decision to share the story wasn't meant to harm anyone. It was a desperate plea for someone to stop his mother's harmful behavior. Her husband, deeply affected by these revelations, decided to expedite the divorce. He agreed to her terms just to finalize their separation, wanting to move on for the sake of their son. By then, her menacing behavior toward children had made her infamous in the community. She was ostracized and even faced hostility from neighbors who had once been cordial. Feeling trapped and rejected, she saw the divorce as her escape. She imagined she could return to her parents' home for comfort, but even there, she was denied entry. Her estranged husband, meanwhile, remained firm in his decision to retain custody of their son, a choice she didn't contest. Coldly, she declared that she didn't care about her son, saying children were a burden and interfered with her plans to remarry. Her cruel words were met with a brave response from her son. He firmly stated that he didn't need her in his life and found solace in his father's care. He even warned her not to approach his cousin, my daughter, again. Her situation worsened after she was turned away from her parent home. She spiraled further, struggling to meet her basic needs and accumulating debt from questionable sources. Eventually, she disappeared altogether. My husband and his parents chose not to file a missing persons report, seeing her absence as a form of resolution rather than a cause for concern. In the aftermath of these events, my daughter slowly regained her confidence and returned to school. Her cousin remained a supportive presence, promising to look out for her. This challenging period unexpectedly strengthened the bond between our families. My former brother-in-law became a close ally, and we worked together to support the children. My in-laws, too, stepped up, wholeheartedly embracing both grandchildren. They provided love and care in the absence of my sister-in-law, helping to create a safe and stable environment for the kids. With her out of the picture, our family finally found peace. The trust and understanding that had once been overshadowed by conflict now flourished, allowing us to move forward as a stronger, united family.